lowest in the SZA period. Development expenditure during the Bhutto era, 73 to 77, grew at 21% per annum. In the SZA period, it grew at 2.7% per annum. A lot of the infrastructure that was created in the Bhutto period still continues to service us. In fact, the next charts that you will see, next chart you will see will show very high growth rate during Zia-ul-Haq period. But that high growth rate during Zia-ul-Haq's period was due to the development expenditure that was carried out in the Bhutto period. Just one example. 1974 is when the Pakistan steel mill in Karachi started construction, 74. A vast amount of development expenditure was put into it. Commercial production of the steel mill started in 1982. So the tree that was sown, the seeds were sown during the Bhutto period, but the tree started giving fruit during the Zia period, and the benefit of that development came to be seen in the 1980s. Port Qasim, Indus Highway, heavy mechanical complex, heavy electrical complex. In fact, the foundation of capital goods industry was laid in the Bhutto period. And that continues to provide us high growth rates because the output is now coming out, the input having been provided in the early 1970s. Next, please. This is the same thing. Okay, now, the green part, the first top left-hand side box, the green part is of the total subsidies that were given by the state. The green part is the subsidy given to food, and the black part is non-food subsidies. The Bhutto period utilized state revenues to subsidize essential food and other expenditures so that the poor would not bear the burden of high prices. Look at the bottom right chart. The green part is food subsidies. This is the part during the Musharraf period. Musharraf has completely eliminated food subsidies. All the subsidy is now given to basically to WAPDA and KESC. These are two agencies which are hemorrhaging the economy. The army took over WAPDA in 1997, promising to reform it, and became part of the corruption. And it continues to drain the economy. And food now constitutes an insignificant part of the subsidy budget. Next, please. Next. This is, I mentioned GDP growth. Zia period, 6.5% average GDP growth. Bhutto period, 4.1%. But it's the 6.5% that you see is because a lot of the factories and productive assets which were started during the Bhutto period came into fruition in the Zia period, and we can see the high growth rates during this period. For today's planners, the most disturbing part is that during the Zia period, development expenditure fell to 2.7%, the growth rate, from 21%, which means no new projects came up during the Zia period. And it is not surprising that in the 90s, when the political governments took over, there was a massive crisis, power crisis. A lot of you will not remember this, but the power crisis was averted because of a decision to go in for thermal power. Because while dams take 10 to 15 years to build, thermal power stations can be built in a couple of years, which was done. A lot of controversy was generated, but despite the controversy, the thermal power stations provided power. It's interesting that Zia's military government did not add much to power generation capacity. And it is interesting that the Musharraf period, 7 years, not one single megawatt of power capacity has been added. I don't know what military governments have against generating power. And for those of you who don't have a generator in your house, please buy it now. Because there is going to be such a severe power crisis this summer that this country has never seen. And generator prices are going to go up. So buy one now if you don't have it. Next, please. These are public investment trends. As you can see, the gray bar is public investment, highest during the Bhutto period, lowest during the Musharraf period. And one more thing, this investment that is, the private investment graph is the highest in the Musharraf period. But this is misleading. It is misleading because in economics, investment is defined as creation of new assets. If I buy your house, then that is my personal investment, but it is not the economy's investment. It is not the country's investment, because the house already existed. Only the ownership changed. What is happening today is when they sell PTCL, when they sell Habib Bank, when they sell UBL, when they sell National Refinery, it's only a change of ownership. The government classifies it as investment. That is not investment. So this bar which goes very high, private investment, is misleading. If you take away the asset sales that have taken place, perhaps that investment bar will not be very high. This is consumption expenditure. As you can see, the highest consumption is in SZA period, understandable, because there was just a lot of income being generated from factories which newly came into production, like the steel mill. So there was more to consume. Also during the SZA period is when remittance from the Middle East really started. 73 was the oil price increase. But between 73 and 78, the Middle East was still trying to put its house together. The real construction boom in the Middle East started in 76, 77. And the peak of Pakistani migrants going to the Saudi Arabia started in 78. So that also contributed to high consumption. But look at the fourth bar. This is the Musharraf period. Consumption growth is only 1% per annum. So if there are claims that poverty has increased, this is the evidence that poverty has increased. And if there are claims that poverty has decreased, this graph belies that claim. Next. These are unemployment figures. Obviously, with a very high degree of development expenditure in the Bhutto period, a lot of construction taking place all over the place, construction in housing, construction in industries, roads, dams, bridges. You know, till the Bhutto era, there was only one bridge on the river Indus in, two bridges, one in Sakhar and one in Hyderabad. So people who wanted to go to Larkana had to, from say Nawab Shah, had to drive all the way to Hyderabad or to Sakhar and then drive all the way back. And the Dadu Moro bridge was constructed. So there were, and the same happened in NWFP, in Punjab, in Balochistan. And that, of course, when that kind of activity, employment was high. And we can see that unemployment rates are very low. Unemployment rates are highest in the Musharraf period because no investment activity is taking place. I keep asking those who say economy is very good, you just tell me one large-scale factory that is under construction, that has been under construction for the last 10 years. And nobody can say yes. Not even the most ardent businessmen, supporters of General Musharraf can answer this question positively. Next, please. This is the total labor demand, and the white curve is for female labor demand. There was a huge growth in employment of women during the Bhutto period, and it has continued to decline, and in the Musharraf period, again, it is only 1% per annum. Women, for all the enlightened moderation that we hear about, women continue to be left out of the development process. Next, please. Now, this is where some negatives come in. Highest growth of nominal wages was in the Bhutto period, 14% per annum. And the